Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today we have author Drew Kientz with a perfect order series. I'll have him pronounce the name for you, but it is one of those books with secret societies, the enlightened, and it's a place where demons, spirits, and witches are very, very real. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Denise. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. How do you pronounce the name? Is it Chrysalis?
Chrysalis.
Chrysalis. Oh, thank you.
Perfect Order series, book 1. Chrysalis. Yep.
How many books are going to be in this series?
As many as there can be while people still read them. I've got it outlined to 7. And with an opportunity for it to go longer. But as long as there's an audience wanting more, I'll keep giving it to them.
Was there any special reason, how you pick the characters' names?
Juniper is a variant of Jennifer, and that I've actually written short stories for a very long time. And I realized when I was writing this one that she's always been there in some form. Sometimes she has a different name, but that alter ego, so to speak, is always there. And I just like the name Juniper. I think it's pretty. And Apple Blossom is the state flower of my home state, Arkansas. And since it's mainly set there for now, I thought it was fitting, you know. As far as the other characters, like Tuppence, that's when I lived in England. And Tuppence is a 2p. It's like a woman over in the States being named Penny. And Mercuria was like it. Are we going down all the characters? You want?
Yeah, do the main characters because it made it really interesting. Yeah, and the bad guys.
Mercuria was like, you know how with Rowling, I know J.K. Rowling's kind of excommunicated right now, but like she has a character like Narcissa, you know, like who's a very narcissistic person. Mercuria comes from mercurial. She's got anger management issues and, you know, hot and cold and stuff. So, and then her sister's quite plain. You know, it's just Amber. I don't know. It just fit. Silas. I've always liked the name for like some kind of mage, wizard, borderline evil kind of person, like Siler, you know, like it just sounds good to me. Mm-hmm. Ohanzi is actually a true Native American name because I have Cherokee ties in my family history. I was actually going to send you those pictures, but we couldn't get a hold of them from like the 1800s. But anyway, but his whole name, Ohanzi Nahimana Nakota, is directly translates to shadow mystic ally in Cherokee, the language, and that's exactly what he is. So yeah, that's all there is to that, really. If the name sticks and it sounds good when we're writing it, then we keep it.
That's wonderful. It really fit in well to the story too, which is a little bit crazy. So Juniper has these abilities all of a sudden. She's also a drug addict. And that played out really well throughout the book because that was something that was, you know, in the book jacket. So you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. But I like the way it played out, and I like the struggle that she goes through. Mm-hmm. So that was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I myself, I wear this on my sleeve. as part of my history, I was an addict that fought various addictions for about 20 years. And I've been clean in May will be about 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I've met all kinds of people. I'm fairly well traveled and have worn many different career hats and stuff. And uh, uh, one thing when I watch a movie or read a book or something, and an addict is instantly this villain, like in a back alley with greasy hair and stuff, it instantly kills my immersion because it's not like that. Most people that are struggling with something, are carrying, or have jobs, kids. That skeleton in the closet definitely will sabotage those things and make it exceedingly more difficult to live a normal life. But these people aren't evil. This is one of the most misunderstood things, I think, in our culture, and it usually has to deal with some undiagnosed mental health issues and things of that nature. So it was important to show that just because she has made some bad decisions and stuff, there's reasons for that. Because Denise, happy people don't just sit around and go, you know what, I think I'm going to do some heroin today.
Right.
Right, I'm going to drink this entire bottle of bourbon. Well-adjusted, balanced, normal people like who don't have a whole lot of trauma in their past and stuff just don't do stuff like that. So it was important to me to kind of tell that story like it's a part of you and it really sucks, but it does not define everything about who you are. And to add on to that last little part there, that even the other side of that coin, because drug addiction is awful, I'm not glorifying it in the slightest,
Yeah, you didn't glorify it at all.
Just wait till the second book. It gets a little bit worse for Juniper regarding all that. But on the other side of that coin is, even though she is presented with all these wonderful powers, right, that she's this primeval and she, is learning as fast as possible and stuff, even though these incredible situations are in front of her, well, you've read it. What's her number one driving force? That itch, right? It's always in the back of her mind. And when she's medicated and stuff, she's fine. But when she needs that next hit, that's all that she can think about. Even when she just discovered I can throw fireballs out of my hands. And that's exactly how insidious addiction is.
I thought it really described addiction well, but, in a world where things could go so possibly wrong. And, how she was just able to get a grasp at different times when she really needed to and follow through. That was so well played out. And it was just a great adventure.
Well, thank you. That's just the kind of person she is. She's the type that gets shoved into these leadership roles sometimes, and she's good at it, but she understands the gravity of being the shot caller, and she doesn't want to be in that situation, but she's one of these people that radiates so much charisma that people kind of naturally look to her to know what to do. And for Juniper, that's terrifying. She's like, why are y'all looking at me? But that's part of it, though. This is just the first book, so we got a long way to go.
How many books will be in the series?
7 at least. And so we got Maleficar coming up in the early summer. I want to have it done by my birthday, which is May 26th.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do 3 kind of little spin-offs for Tuppence, Silas, the twins, and Ohanzi, where they go off. It's to give them more depth because it's been asked by the readers. Because the favorites so far are Tuppence, Silas, and Amber. And so I was like, well, let's give the readers what they want. Let's give them their own, what I call side quests, right? And from my gaming background. And then we're going to bring them all back together in 4. And there's something that big that happens at the end of this 3rd book, Denise. That's going to be quite the gamble. We'll see if it pays off for me.
I can't wait. All right. So tell us a little bit about some of the other areas. You covered the Indian heritages in your background. So,
Mm-hmm.
what about the Windigos that play a part in this story?
Well, okay, so Arkansas, half the state is this primordial forest, and the Ozarks. And I'm very comfortable in deep woods and caves and stuff like that because that's what I grew up around. But it's inherently terrifying to some people. And when you're lost in the woods, you are lost, If you lose your bearing and sense of direction, it can be quite terrifying. And I wanted to capture that, of especially from the views of like Tuppence and the twins, who, Tuppence is from England, the twins are from Los Angeles, and here chunk them in this forest. And I just always thought the Wendigo is a terrifying creature in all of its different incarnations, and there's so many different tales to pull from. Like the whole idea of taking a person, putting them in an extreme situation, it goes real bad, and here comes this spirit demon creature to turn you into like some sort of cannibal monster and betray all your loved ones and stuff. To me, that seems completely ghastly. And I thought that would be like a good way to tee off the series as the first, big bad evil guy, so to speak. But so that's where that came from. I think they're just ghastly and horrible and terrible, and I thought that was a really good monster to pick from. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
he was terrible. It was kind of
well,
scary.
well, yeah, the thing is my demons are more of like spiritual parasites,
Hmm.
and they can't exist on our plane without corrupting everything around them, because that's just in their very nature. They can't live in harmony with things. They can only destroy and mock life. It's like what Granddaddy Tolkien said: evil can only mock life, it cannot create. That's paraphrasing it, but and yeah, that's where that came from. Just a good old big bad monster to throw at our new team here.
Yeah. But what about the magic abilities of the characters? How did you come up with that? And how do you keep track of who has what ability? Because there's so much going on in the series.
Yeah, well, I have a background in gaming and game development, and the gaming's always been my number one hobby ever since I was like 18 months old. I got a controller stuck in my hand playing Atari, and magic. I always found the role playing games, the high sword and sorcery, fantasy and stuff. That's all where inspirations for, like, we don't call it a fire magic, we call it pyromancy. It's not lightning, it's ignimancy. Like, that's been pulled from so many different sources and then kind of put in a little crucible and then molded into what I've got here. It's just a magic system. It's just a magic system.
Well,
There's
it was a really good magic system in that it was believable.
Well, what the main thing that I go with, it's like, what are their limits, right? Well, as we touched on in Chrysalis, like, they're kind of like for instance, the twins who have been trained to hunt monsters. They're like elite athletes, and their body, the old saying that your body is your temple. The more well nourished and fit and powerful they are, because their body is their vessel, what it all channels through. And the better, the cleaner that mechanism is, the stronger they are. And that's the thing with Juniper was saying her Juniper. Juniper is that she's never going to be as powerful as she possibly can be while she's on drugs, because her body's corrupted, and when she really pushes the envelope for what she can do to try to hit those, try to hit a new ceiling, that's when she's usually passing out from fatigue and the things that you saw, because her body's not ready to be doing the things she's doing. And so it's her genetics, the primeval and stuff, which we explore more in the next book, and we will as we go on, and why that is. But yeah, as until she can kick that demon and get that monkey off her back, she's never going to be as good as she could be, which is kind of like frightening because she's already pretty strong. But
Right.
but it's like a sprinter versus a marathoner. She can like she can really wreck things for 10, 15 minutes, and then she's done. But that also gives opportunities to show her like really digging deep and abilities to overcome adversity and things like that. But yeah, it's almost like the main villain of the story is her herself, because it's that her problems, that they're always there, and she sometimes she sabotages herself, and so overcoming that is good for her. It's good for her powers. It's good for everyone around her, and
Yes.
that's what we're going with there. Yeah.
All right. And then the other two big things that come up that I wanted to ask you about are music references.
Yeah.
And I love how the lyrics fit in with what's going on in the story as we keep moving through. And then
Hmm.
all these crazy T-shirt slogans. What's up with that?
I have a lot myself. I'm wearing my Mario. I don't know if you can see it, but the Mario cast doing the Beatles thing here,
Oh,
Abbey
okay.
Road. And it's just a funny way to display her personality, and it's kind of some comic relief. But that's because that's who she is. She's like, what was it? I'm a polite lady that likes to say bleep a lot was one of them, and then Jane Doe was another one. And music is intrinsic to the Perfect Order experience. So she's a professional musician, and I came up in my late teen years and adult years around lots of musicians, and still know professional musicians today that of some of them pretty high caliber, and it's just it adds that immersion for the reader. Like, that's the full experience. Because that's why I put that playlist at the beginning. It's like, if you see that song and hit play, it's only going to enhance your immersion in the story. And I just thought it was a cool idea.
It
So
was
I
a
went with it.
really cool idea.
Yeah, thanks. Well, actually, I'll give some credit. One of my old mentors, Carrie Vaughn, she's a New York Times bestselling author. She did the Kitty Werewolf series. This was before shifters were like, what they are now. It's its own genre. But back like 20 years ago, she was one of the first people doing it. But at the beginning of her book, she had the playlist, and it's what she was listening to as she wrote it. And the songs were not in the story. And I was like, man, if I ever write a book someday, I'm going to have music all through it. And here we are. So I've gotten lots of good feedback on that, including from you just now, and I think it's something that works. I see things very cinematically when I'm writing. What they're hearing, smelling, seeing. My mind's eye is like a camera panning around, and with that design background that I have and stuff, and then just music, just being such a passionate listener and everything. I think it all fits together real well. It gives you more immersion into what's going on. It's like when you're watching a movie, the music is everything. If you have a real serious scene, but you put Benny Hinn music on or something, like it's not going to work. And that's where that all comes from.
So were you listening to the music when you were writing?
I have to listen to music while I'm writing, or I can't do it. Like, because it helps me get in that zone, and it helps enhance my ability, like with descriptions and stuff, or emotional responses and stuff. If I have that music going, it enhances it for me as the author, and then that means you, the reader, are going to get a better story out of me.
Very cool. So when you were doing video game development, did you also listen to music when you were doing that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You should. There's actually one of the games I worked on called Infamous Second Son. That was another one where music. It was set in Seattle, and so we had some local bands plugging, like Dead Sarah, who did a cover of Nirvana's for the closing credits, and that was kind of like the vibe to that game was Seattle, the old grunge, grunge rock and roll beginnings in the '90s and stuff, and that was kind of rehashed for this game, and so, yeah, so yeah, it's just how I get into the zone,
Well, I guess from all the musicians and the events you've been to that would deal with that kind of just different music, are of the events that happen throughout the book drawn from real life experiences?
Yes.
Well, that's scary.
Yeah, well, it's obviously I have not ever fought a Windigo with lightning and fire, but those stories and have floated around and some campfires and stuff like that, and but as far as Juniper's, like, her being the professional musician, the experience she experiences she goes through, particularly with her friend Lee dying, and that I don't actually, I only show that one chapter, right, chapter 3 of when Lee was alive, and it's more like a ghost from her past.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very much something that I went through many times, and so that was kind of like me. It was cathartic for me to write it, and show that these terrible things can happen, but you get through it. But it's important to have people around you to support you, someone to lean on, like the Rhiannon character.
Mm-hmm.
That's my mom. So, hi, Mom. She'll be watching this. She's probably going like, yes. But yeah, most of the characters are either a family member in their best light, or an amalgam of character traits from friends and people I've met and stuff that I really liked, and I'm like, I'm going to take their gregariousness and this person's, whatever, and kind of throw it all in the soup and everything. So, but yeah, there's Deepwood Covens in Arkansas. I got a dear friend. I'll keep her name anonymous, but her entire family are Coven. So, and that's their beliefs, but they're not. It's different. It's like this old Southern, like witch stuff. It's kind of hard to explain without burning a whole lot of time. But there was that, and along the South, there's all kinds of like old stories of monsters and stuff coming out of the swamps and snatching kids and all that kind of stuff. So I pulled on that quite a bit. But everything that happens in my books has some grain of truth to it, or sometimes it's something I just outright lived through and I'm just replaying for people.
Wow. It was really well done. I enjoyed reading it, even though some nights it kept me up really late.
Yeah? Well,
yeah.
That's the kind of thing we love to hear. It's kind of like, well, I'm sorry, I guess. I'm sorry you were so entertained that you couldn't put it down.
I know. Well, because there's like the chapters would just leave off at something, and you're like, okay, well, wait, one more chapter.
The ye old mini cliffhanger. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you put one of those at the end of every chapter, so they go, I got to find out what happens.
I know.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Instead of just putting it to bed, and all right, well, this is a good stopping point. It's like, no, I must know. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it was a must-know book all the way through. It was really enlightening as far as drug addiction and, the highs and lows. I also like the way you played out with her new friends and old friends, trying to get her into yoga and other things to get her mind off of the addictions.
Yeah.
And the whole playlist throughout was funny because, the songs really played into it, just like you would see in a movie.
Right. Well, the dream is to get it adapted to the screen someday. And when I was writing it, I'm thinking of, well, at first I wanted to make it a game. but I don't have several $1 million laying around to sink into a game, to develop a game. But it could be a graphic novel. It could be a show. Like it's designed in that way that it could easily translate, into something like that. One day, here's
Yeah.
hoping. Yeah.
Here's hoping. It's really primeval and scary in a lot of places, though. It's like, so it's really bad to read late at night.
Really?
Yeah, it's scary. Like I was thinking
Well,
about it. Yeah.
well, what part scared you?
Um,
Parts.
no, it was just, the parts when she comes up against conflicts that she has to settle. The part on the, Indian reservation.
Hmm.
Um,
Quick little correction on that. It's not a reservation.
yeah, it's really,
Yeah, because for the audience and stuff, it's one little town that managed to escape all the genocide, and it's kind of a representation of maybe what would a Native American, little town village look like if if they weren't eradicated. That black eye on America's history. So,
right.
but yeah, not to like jump down your throat about it or something, but
No,
I
that's
was just
okay.
thinking it's not a
It was
reservation.
more of a town. I apologize. It
Yeah,
was definitely a
no, it's
town.
okay. Yeah.
But I like that you brought a lot of the cultural elements into
Hmm.
the story.
Yeah, that was painstakingly done too. My buddy, actually, shout out to my buddy John Crowder, and he was a big, big help on getting that information accurate because it's very important. Like especially like there's that powwow that you read about at the very end there. All those little details and stuff. It was very important to get that right.
Yeah, and you did. It was really
Thanks.
an interesting read that's fast paced and keeps you tuned in. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing so much about how you created such an exciting novel.
Thank you so much for reading it, and thank you for having me on here. And go read Almagus next. That's book 2, and we put the pedal to the metal on that one. It's kind of like breakneck speed, but it's a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Until next time, keep asking questions. And if you need a little bit of chaos and some order in your life, the Perfect Order series with Chrysalis.
Chrysalis.
Thank you. This story will not let you down.